Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman, and today I'm joined by Matt Young. Matt has achieved a 10x return on PPC over the past 13 months. We're going to talk with him about the stuff that he's doing on his side to make that kind of return possible. I'll see you there. Matt, welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Hey, doing fantastic. And I'm excited for this episode today. We are going to dive all into your business, what you're doing. The reason you're on the podcast today is because you have great results with online marketing, and I always love to dig into that kind of stuff, and we're here to record it so that anybody else who might have something to learn from Matt here can listen and hopefully get better themselves. So just for introduction's sake, Matt, where do you come from? Like what does your business do? What market are you in? All that kind of stuff.
Yep. So my name is Matt Young. My business partner is here, Tony Romeo. We're in the Des Moines market, Des Moines, Iowa. We market direct to seller for properties, and we do a variety of exit strategies. That's our main focus. Build a rental portfolio and wholesale some deals. So
Right on. So how much you said you do a variety of exit strategies? Like what percentage? Just roughly, I'm not looking for anything super specific, but are you like mostly wholesale that you just keep some from time to time, or are you flipping half of them, or what?
I would say it goes in waves,
Mhm.
but I think we're primarily trying to sell everything possible, right? If it's a flip deal, we have all sorts of wholesale buyers ready to buy it if it's a flip. So those ones they sell quick. It's the ones that maybe less equity or the light cleanup stuff. We tend to end up doing those ourselves, or close them down and do floors, paint, light, cosmetics, and put them back on as like a almost a hotel style listing, but maybe a little bit more rehab to it than that.
Okay.
We'll do a fair amount of sub twos, and we like to sell them on contract. That's probably our preferred after the wholesale. So it just kind of
All
depends
right.
on the deal is. And sometimes you get a handful of them in a row that really work this way, and sometimes you get a bunch that are definitely flip potential. And anytime we get that, we'll get it moved quick on the wholesale
Okay.
side. We double close everything here in Iowa, just easier. So, but it's
Understood. So what I'm gathering from you is you have a lot of options, right? So you might get kind of a mixed bag of leads, but you try to have at least a few options to be able to monetize that lead, even if it doesn't
yep,
fit like neatly into one of those or the next, which is actually something we do see. So it's interesting. A lot of real estate investors starting out tend to focus more on just one exit, but as they grow, they tend to have more exits. And we recently did a survey of the whole industry, and we gathered a bunch of data about the businesses based on different factors. And one of the things we measured was how many exit strategies do you have. And as a lot of people would suspect, you're basically proving the hypothesis that as investors had more exit strategies, they actually closed a greater percentage of their leads,
yeah,
which
for sure. I mean, you got to be
is
able to make
kind of what you
it.
expect. But it was, to me, it was cool to actually like be able to prove it with data and see this is a real thing.
Yep. So you got to find a way to get them closed.
Yeah, absolutely. So the part of the reason you're here is I feel like in the world of PPC marketing, at least, like everybody, like it feels like it's less common now. Because I think as a whole, this industry is a little bit harder. But for a while there, like all of our clients come to us saying, "I want 10x returns. I want 10x returns on stuff," which is actually like kind of unusual. Not that it doesn't happen. You actually have a 10x return on PPC marketing, which is awesome. It's kind of like I said, kind of unusual, especially over a long period of time, right? So do we have clients that will hit like 10x for a quarter? Yes, it's reasonably common to hit 10x. And at your point, you've been hitting 10x over about 13 months. That's a little bit more unusual, right? Because it shows an actual sustained like high performance, and usually that's associated with you just being really good at making value of the campaigns. On our side, we're good at marketing, right? We do lots of that, but also we have clients hitting 3x, and we're not like bad at marketing for those clients compared to how good we are at marketing for you, right? There's different factors with like with markets and timing, and there's so many different things that go into that. But that's why I want to dig just a little bit into this so we can just explore like, why in your opinion do you think the return is where it is? What things do you think they're doing right? And
Well, the
how
two
have
of us
things
have a,
changed over time?
sorry about that. I didn't mean to pick you up. But the two of us have a fair amount of sales experience. So we both came from my car business. My previous job, I was a general sales manager at a car dealership. So I had a huge marketing budget. We had to make sure that speed the lead was there and that we're following up with them properly and that we're converting them. And so many leads coming in at your conversion is how many cars you're going to sell a month. So as long as you keep your conversions in mind, then you can really forecast what you're going to do. So understanding that and understanding how important it is to follow up with the lead right away, and then what it takes to get in communication with a lead that hasn't answered, like an unqualified lead. So we do have a pretty strict cadence of, we follow your method of doing the 5 calls in the first day, which I didn't do that on the car business side, but I do understand the urgency on the PPC leads. And then we call, twice a day, email and text for the first 5 days. And then the following week, it'll be like 4 days of the week that we'll do that. And then 3 days, it'll just kind of tear down. But if you're doing that on every lead, then you should be able to get a hold of 70% of your leads. And then from there, you got to get your appointments set. So if you're not getting your appointments set, then you got to figure out why you're not setting your appointments and figure out how to make those calls better. But you just got to figure out where you're breaking down in your sales process and fix that area and get better and better and better until you can, do it with consistency. So you have a ton of experience on that side. And so it just kind of funnels in on this side, I would say.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how like the answer to the most awesome things in business is always like just do the basics really well.
All the basics. When you get stuck,
there's nothing crazy.
Go back to the basics because you get drunk on your own success and you're like, you just got to humble yourself and go back and do what you're supposed to be doing, and it works.
Yeah. I tell my team all the time, like, we're not allowed to do anything cool until like we never don't do the really basic, boring stuff that's really important just to make sure that we succeed, because how often do you see you're like implementing some cool new sales script or something, meanwhile you're not actually contacting the leads as quickly as you should or as many times as you should, or whatever the case is. It's like it's the boring stuff that's really, really good. So let's dig into that more though, because there is some nuance to those specific things. Obviously, like, I'm a huge fan of this process of you understand your funnel, you optimize your funnel, you understand where things are breaking down, find the constraint, fix the constraint. That's how you get better results. So as like a general framework that kind of works all the time, I think that's good. But let's talk about some of the specifics within that. Like you mentioned, setting appointments is a big part of this. I want to understand, so who's making the phone calls? And what is the criteria for setting appointments that you guys are using right now?
Okay. Yeah. So we do a dig, set, spike model that we were taught from 80/20 Academy years ago. So we outsource the dig step to you guys. You bring us the lead that says they would sell a house. And then I'm probably the first form of contact on the PPC lead. So if the lead comes in, I either answer it or I'm the one calling it. And if it's not me getting hold of them day one, then it would be my follow-up specialist, Jill, would be the one following up with them and helping set that appointment. But to answer your question to who we set appointments on, if they're willing to sell their house, we're going to set the appointment. We don't care if they're needing to sell it for a huge discount or we don't overqualify them. Our goal is to go talk to them if they're wanting to sell a house. So if they want or need to sell, we get an appointment. If it's over an hour from us, we probably still set the appointment, but that might turn into a phone call because we just don't have the bandwidth to do a lot of those. If it's, you get all the red flags and it's a for sure deal, we'll probably drive the hour to go do the appointment. But most of our appointments, we prefer to go in person over the virtual route, but we're marketing here in our own local market. So we're not doing like the nationwide model where we're not in the market that we're marketing in. So
yeah, that makes sense. So a couple of things that you said that I want to highlight here. Number one, very liberal appointment setting criteria, which I actually noticed is something generally true across our clients that have a really high return on ad spend. Because what's interesting with PPC leads is it's almost like a lot of people use a framework like the 4 pillars of motivation to decide is a lead qualified or is it not. It's like, well, there's like a 5th pillar, and that 5th pillar is, did they like search and find you? And as long as you have that pillar, like there's
we just paid money for the lead, and they said they want to sell it to. Well, we're gonna go talk to them.
Yeah. What if they have no equity?
That's fine. Those are easy deals. So
why?
Because we'll buy them sub 2. Hopefully they got a good interest rate, but I mean, you can pick up a house with little to no money down if they have no equity. They're going to have to get a realtor involved, list it, pay two sides of commissions, and write a check to close it, but they need to sell their house and they can't do that. And you're all of a sudden going to give them $1,500 at closing and take care of all the closing costs and not have to worry about it anymore. And their payment's going to be made. We love those deals.
Yeah, yeah, understood. Okay, so that's cool. So that's the first thing I noticed. Very liberal appointment setting criteria, and with that extremely liberal, because when people think this, they're like, oh, if I'm just going to go on every appointment where everybody says like, sure, I'll be willing to talk to you about selling my house, then I'm just going to spend all my time out there, just wasting my time, not closing any of these leads. I'm really curious, how many appointments like that do you have to go to get a contract on average?
So our goal is to have about 7 appointments a week. It doesn't always happen. And then out of those 7 appointments, we want to get 2 purchase agreements signed. And we're probably in that realm of, 3 to 5 appointments and we'll get a purchase agreement. And it doesn't matter
Yeah.
really what it is, and we'll just figure out a way to make it make sense if they're willing to sell. And I'm also a realtor and we have the realty team, so I can try to get a listing there. That's the most logical outcome. So
Yeah. Yeah. A rule of thumb I heard for this recently is like you'll see people on both sides. Like there's the ones who are like closing 1 in 10 appointments. I just talked to someone like that like 2 days ago, where they came to us with the PPC campaign and they're like, we think something's wrong. And then like they were only closing 1 in 10 appointments. And I was like, there's a few things you could do like on the PPC, but ultimately like that's your problem is your close rate's just super, super low. Right. Or it's usually a sales problem. But then there's also those people out there who are closing like, oh, we close 1 in 2 appointments or something like that, like a really high close rate. And it usually means you're overqualifying your leads a little bit. There's kind of the sweet spot where it seems like a lot of companies that are doing really well are, like you said, in that 3 to 5 appointments per contract kind of range, where you're closing really well and also you're you could be a really good closer and only close 1 in 3 to 5, because those 3 to 5 are just anybody who raises their hand and wants to sell. It's not just like every easy lay down appointment that you could possibly go on, right? Like that's sales. Like your job is to go there and get rejected. Like that's literally the job.
yeah, I spent years in the car business sending out mailers to people saying we're going to give them 125% of Kelly Blue Book retail for their trade-in just to bring them in to talk to us. And we did nowhere close to that. And they still say yes. So we know that what they say going in is like their reflex objection. They got their wall up. You need to go make your friend and figure out what really is keeping them from saying yes. So
Yeah, understood. Okay. So appointment setting was the first thing I wanted to dig into. The second one is the person setting the appointments. And this is interesting because different people do it different ways. Some people have lead managers doing this job. Some people have acquisitions managers doing this job. And there are a huge range for these roles. Like I know somebody who has a lead manager that makes $500,000 a year. And I know people who pay their lead managers $5 an hour in the Philippines, right?
yeah.
So there's a heck of a range, right? It's not like all lead managers are the same or something like that. But walk me through like this process of like I'm just curious about all the details of this. Like for example, when you do make that first call and you do connect with the seller, is it like a 2-minute conversation or is it a 45-minute conversation? And why is it that you're doing that as opposed to somebody else? All those things.
Well, I'm doing it on the PPC with these because they're hot, typically, high motivation. And we have a script that we bring them down. I would say the call's 15 to 25-ish minutes, depending on how long it takes you to kind of get through that. But I mean, to be on the phone much longer than that, it's probably not incredibly necessary. And you got just like a rambling person on the other line. I'd say that's kind of like our sweet spot for that. And it's not perfect. Sometimes I'll take the phone call when I'm driving and I'll do a condensed version of that. And if I can tell I'm going to get the appointment, I might not dig as deep as I should on that call, because my main goal is just to set the appointment. And I know Tony in the house will come in with the same kind of script and mindset and get the data that I didn't necessarily get while I was driving. So
Yeah, understood. Okay, so 15, 25-minute phone calls. Could you give me some insight into what that script looks like? Like, what are the things that you're usually going through, and in what order?
Um,
What order does make sense for those? And where'd you get it? Is
so
this something you came up with yourself or somewhere else?
no, we got it from the 80/20 Academy, or Eric B. He's running it now as his script. But basically, you're kind of just telling them how the phone call is going to go, what they're going to expect. Then you're getting the address, making sure you understand that you're looking at the right property, verifying bed, bathrooms, making sure that that information you're looking at is accurate, the size, your build, that kind of stuff. And then I ask them to tell me a little bit about the home. What's the condition? Is it going to need any repairs, updates? And they'll kind of give me those answers. And then I'll ask them about the major home systems, your roofs, your mechanicals, plumbing, windows. Get an idea of what that looks like. Kind of go into why they're thinking about selling, who else they talked to. Have you talked to a realtor about this thing? Is there anyone else like me that's willing to make an offer on this? What does that look like? And if they've got those offers, why didn't you accept them? What's going on there? And then kind of ask them, what are they thinking they're going to get out of the property, or how much are they hoping to get? What are they thinking? When they give you a number, we always ask if they're flexible. Is that a hard line? And then from there, kind of give them an idea of how our appointment's going to go. We're going to go in, we're going to get some comparables of the property so we can show you what your house could sell for as is on market. I'm also going to show you if there are some updates and repairs to be made, about how much those would cost you. And if you were to do them yourself, how much that could, potentially add to the value. And if you were to list it afterwards, the difference in your net. So we give them a net sheet and all those comps at the appointment that shows them how much their house is worth, if they sold it as is, what they'd net, if they took our cash offer, what they'd net, and if they were going to rehab it themselves and sell it for all the money, how much they could net doing that. So they have all those options on the table, and it just opens up that conversation at the appointment. So we kind of give them that idea, go into the setting the appointment. So
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. So if I understand you right, that like the sheet of options, that's something delivered at the appointment, not on the lead
yep,
management call.
I tell them
You
now
have
I'm
to
going
do
to
the comps
compare
beforehand.
that. Yep, and I told
Okay.
them that before. So I'm going to pull the comparables before the appointment, and then Tony's going to bring those comparables with them to share them with the seller at the appointment, and then we update that live. And so I get a good idea from talking to them what I think the rehab number is going to be, and I put it in there in our sheet. But we use CompanyCam, and so when he goes in there, he'll start picturing the property, and I can look at them live, and then I can update my rehab estimate, and so I can do that live
That's
in
so
the
cool.
appointment, and I dial in that number, and so that his offer number is ready right there. And then usually he calls me at the appointment while he's walking the exterior and kind of gives me a recap of what's going on, and I kind of tell him what I'm seeing, and if there's something that he's picked up on that we need to adjust the offer, we kind of talk through that, and then I put the offer in and then upload it into our drive, and then he'll present that packet there at the appointment.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you do it that way, because it gives like something to look forward to on the appointment. Like, you are adding value to them, you are showing them. And what's the and that whole thing, did you create that yourself, or is this part of the sales training that you did?
That's from Eric B.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right. So you're basically just like following all these scripts, the whole process as it is, and it's killing it for you guys. You add that with like all your previous sales experience, and you're doing awesome.
Yeah, the packet was a game changer once we started using that. We were closing good, but it really opens up that conversation, and then it brings them back to reality. Everyone, they live in the house, they have this emotional attachment to the house, and so they have this unrealistic expectation of what it's actually worth. But you walk through the comps with them, and like, yes, I get it. Your neighbor sold for $40,000 more than we're offering, $200,000 more than we're offering, maybe, who knows? But this is what the neighbor's house looked like. You know what I mean? Yours doesn't quite look like that. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
what else says it's worth this on Zillow?
Yeah, that's fair, because Zillow doesn't know what the condition that your house is in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, that's really neat. Cool. And the one thing I want to highlight here too, and this is something we've seen across like our high performing clients. Once upon a time, we did a study, and we basically saw our clients had acquisitions managers managing the leads right away closed better than those that had lead managers. I think the industry has changed in terms of lead management a lot though, where lead managers are getting like more and more qualified. People are understanding how important that is. And I've seen some people killing it with like lead managers doing it a really, really good way. Because I think the reality is you just need like a really, really qualified salesperson on that first call to properly dig into the motivation, to make them feel like they just don't have to go somewhere else to reach out to try to get an offer or something like that, right? Because if I'm a seller and I'm just going through Google and I'm just looking at, I'm just kind of reaching out to a bunch of different investors, and then Matt stops me in my tracks and I talk to them. I'm just like, you know what? Like this Matt guy seems like he's really got his stuff together. He's going to show me like how the different options of how I could sell my house and all that stuff. He set an appointment for me. Like that's different than if like, oh, I just talked to Matt and like my problem doesn't feel solved, but he set an appointment to solve my problem later. I'm just going to keep on searching because I saw that pain.
I will say that too sometimes on these PPC leads because of the nationwide aspect of PPC, and the next person that talks to them likely doesn't want to go to an appointment. And so I'll tell them that before on those first lead calls on the PPC leads at towards the end, or if I feel like that's going to be an issue because of the nationwide aspect of PPC, where the next person is probably not going to the house and they're going to just, try to get an offer accepted over the phone. And I'll tell them, I was like, hey, we're local here. We want to see the house in person. That's how we get the most of our houses purchased. But if you just want someone to tell you that they'll buy your house, I mean, I'll do that. I'll give you a number right now that we'll close on if you want. I mean, if that's all you want is someone just to tell you a number and put a contract together and send it to you. But we prefer to come out to take a look at the property. And that usually bridges that gap. Will at least give us the time to get our offer in front of them and still do the appointment, even if there's another guy calling a couple minutes later. Because I already told him.
Okay, that's awesome, Matt. So what I'm getting is basically you don't tell them, no, we can't do that, right? So it's easy for you to compete with those people because you're saying, yes, we are willing to do that, but that's not what's actually best for them, right? So you convince them that you can. We actually do the same thing. We have people all the time come to us with like strategies that they've heard from other people. Like, this is a strategy that I want to use. And if we're not careful, then other digital marketing companies kind of use that on us. Like, oh, we'll do this, but they say they won't. So what we end up saying is like, yeah, we can do that. Because like usually it's not. The typical case here is this is not a strategy that we can't do. It's a strategy that we can and have done, and it doesn't work like we want it to, and therefore we don't do it, right? So what we'll usually tell the client is like, yes, we can do that. If you want us to do that, we can do that, but here's why we think we shouldn't. And just keeping that door open of like, yes, we're willing to do that. We never actually end up having to do that. It just comes down to us knowing what's best for the marketing campaign, and just it's just a way to build that trust. All right, Matt, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and sharing all of this wisdom. If anybody's listening to this and they want to get a hold of you for whatever reason, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can find us on saledirectiowa.com.
Thanks again, Matt, for coming on. And for everybody else listening, I will see you next week.